Good morning, everyone. For those of you who are new here or haven't been around since we've switched up the order service a little bit, I start out each service helping us gather in as a community with what is on our hearts. And I have lit a candle already by request. Email I received this morning from John Austin said he had been planning to be here for worship, but Linda is not doing well. And so he is with her and asked that a candle be glowing for his wife, Linda, who's in hospice care. Are there other joys, sorrows to lift up in the community and share with one another? Judith.
I would add a candle for John.
Yeah.
Because this is a tough time for him.
Thank you, Judith. So we add to this a candle for John Austin, for our community to lift him up in this light, in this time. Yes, Jean.
For Tyree Nichols and the people of Memphis who are all...
For Tyree Nichols and the people of Memphis. You served in Memphis, didn't you, Jean? So the people of Memphis who are all upset and grieving.
Just candle of joy because Grandpa Greg, my wife's father, has come to visit us.
Wonderful. You get a candle. And remind me your name again? Greg. It's for Grandpa Greg to be here and a joy to be among us this morning. Good. Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin, for bringing up that candle. I know there may be other joys or sorrows held in our hearts, and that's one reason why we have our coffee time after the service to mix and mingle and be able to hear more of the stories of our lives and what's going on. And thank you for sharing, and the glow of these lights will continue through the service. I have a few announcements to make. I announced previously that the book, Mistakes and Miracles, is finally back in print. And so our plan, and Virginia, I thank Virginia for bringing it forward, is why don't we read the Common Read book for the Unitarian Universalists across the nation? So we are going to read it, and it's 4 sessions of discussion. So if you get your copy now, we'll start it sometime next month. If you want to see if there's a cheaper way than ordering it yourself, and we get a group order maybe from Highland Books or through the UUA, speak to me about that. Otherwise, go on and click on your Kindle or whatever you want, and we can all study like all the Unitarian Universalists on that book. We have lovely flowers each week. I am always impressed by the variation and the care. These are coveted volunteer opportunities in our service, and for some reason, we have an opening on second Sundays for a flower provider. Or at least we did as of Friday, unless it was snatched up immediately by those who said, wait, I've been waiting a generation for an opening to try to give flowers. So speak to Tricia at UUA.org, UUTC.org. Sorry, don't write to the UUA. They won't know what you're talking about. Tricia at UUTC.org, and you can be on the flower list. Are you volunteering for the flower list? Then you know what? You need to email Tricia, because I'm not going to remember. All right. We announced every once in a while the Center for Spiritual Wisdom or other organizations overlap with the kinds of things we'd love to explore. And we announced Thursday, February 9th, there's a virtual Zoom meeting that they're holding on the spirituality of Generation Z. And they interviewed some Brevard College students on that. So every once in a while, we lift that up in our announcements and our update during the week. And so you'll find a link there, and you can look for it. And I was told, just as folks were arriving, Gypsy told me that there is now a yellow box in the entryway. That is for books, to donate to the AAUW for the book sale. And so as you think of those things that you would like to pass along for the good of charity, go ahead and place them in that box from week to week here at UUTC. I'm sure there are many more things that your poor minister focused on a sermon this morning has forgotten. Yes, one. See, you're not the only one who says, what? Now that I think of it, those of you who participate in the team meetings once a month or so, we switched it up. We moved it around a bit, so it's the first Wednesday of the month, which surprises this Wednesday. So if you're among one of those ministry teams that has something on their calendar to meet on team meeting night, where I go to meeting, it's this Wednesday. Surprise! So that's good. For those of you, and I see many new faces in this space, for those of you who are new to this space, welcome, whether you found us online first, whether you are searching for the first time or dragged along by your grandkids. Welcome to this space. We are glad to have you here. And this is one of those places where you will find that we do not all think alike, but we do love to support one another in our spiritual growth. And we covenant to being a place of respect for one another while we search in our embrace of diversity, no matter who you are and who you love. Thank you for being here with us. I am going to turn it over now to our wonderful AV tech crew who will, you got it up and running now, Catherine? We'll have our videos up and running for Ubi Caritas and our beginning of service.
Ubi caritas et amor Deus ibi est, congrego vinus et unum Christi amor. Ubi caritas et amor Deus
Good morning. Our opening words this morning are from the Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt, who's the president of the Star King School for the Ministry and is a contributing editor to the UU World. She's the author of Unafraid of the Dark, a memoir. This reading is from her essay, Our Faith, in the Unitarian Universalist Pocket Guide. It makes mention to a line in Rumi's poem, "Come, come, whoever you are, come even if you have broken a vow 1,000 times." And she says, by no means are we Unitarian Universalists perfect. We often fail as much as we succeed. Yet even when we have broken our vows 1,000 times, we return to this essential work of justice and liberation for all. We do the work best, and we remember what church is and what it's not. Church is not a place to hide. It's not a place to get away from the world. It's not a place where we get to pretend that our lives that we live or particular situations are not terribly complex, often confusing, and sometimes depressing. Church is the place where we stand with one another, where we look the world in the eye, attempt to see clearly, and gather strength to face what we see with courage and, yes, with joy. Now, if you'll join us in hymn number 188 and stand as you're willing or able. This is a round, and so Reverend Bob is going to help us get through this round.
So we're going to go through it, sing it through all together, and then I'm going to help split you from one side to another. We could try 3, but I don't think so. I think we're going to do everybody this side of the aisle is group 1, and then everybody this side of the aisle is group 2. And so we'll do the round that way afterwards. We'll repeat it a couple of times, Carlene, that way. All right, so let's sing it all together once, and then one will start again. Our chalice lighting, we'd like to do that in unison, please, so please join us. These are the words of the Reverend Scott Taylor, who happens to be coordinator of the National Soul Matters Project. So let us begin. Pulled in many directions by the demands of our days, we light this chalice to remind us of the still point deep inside. May, unsteadied by the winds of unpredictable paths, we light this chalice to remember the shelter of each other, longing for the lights that lead us back
our truest selves. We kindle this chalice to illuminate the faces of friends and sacred companions, recalling once again that we find our way through the wilderness to take each other's hand.
Good morning.
All right.
My name's Kevin, and I have the wonderful opportunity to work with the kids, and this is our words of wisdom. And for the month of January, we have been talking about finding your center. What's in the center inside of you, what roots you, what calms you, what is more of your true essence. And so today, for our words of wisdom, we're going to tell the story of the two Buddhist monks, and you might know them. And to help illustrate the story, we have some dinosaurs, of course. So we're going to call this the story of the two Buddhist dinosaurs, and it fits that these guys are vegetarians also. So there were two Buddhist dinosaurs walking down the path one day, an older one and a younger one. And they're talking about their philosophy and how to get through life, how to be calm, how to be centered, how not to be rocked by the waves of everyday life. And as they came along, they came to a stream. And at that stream was a very grumpy dinosaur. T-Rexes are usually seen as being kind of grumpy. And that grumpy dinosaur did not want to cross that stream and to get himself all wet and all muddy, and was being very cross and mean and rude to everybody around. So the older Buddhist dinosaur said, "Why don't you get on my back, and I will carry you across." And that older Buddhist dinosaur carried him across the stream. And on the other side, the grumpy dinosaur jumped off, didn't say a word of thanks, didn't say anything, just went, and walked on its way. So the other younger Buddhist dinosaur came along and crossed the stream too, and they started walking. And they kept walking and walking. About an hour passed when finally the younger dinosaur couldn't take it anymore and said, "Wait, stop. Aren't you feeling anything about what that grumpy dinosaur did to you? You put him on your back, you carried him across the stream, and he jumped off and was just mean and indignant and didn't say thank you or anything. Aren't you angry about this?" And the older Buddhist dinosaur said, "How long are you going to carry him in your heart? I put that grumpy guy down an hour ago, but you're still carrying him inside of you, being so mean and so angry and with such disgust about him." And if we put the dinosaurs aside for the minute, what is the meaning of this story? And this is, anyone can say it out loud. Any thoughts, Jack? Don't carry stuff that's in the past. Very good. People will be mean to us, will be rude to us. Life will hit us with rocky waves. It might really mess us up. But if we try and put it to the past, we don't have to carry, again, all that's happened to us. We can let us go and go peacefully on our way in life and maybe be a little bit better for it, maybe bring a little more peace to others around us. And will Emery now bring up our kids' chalice, and we'll light it, and then we'll sing the kids out to the class.
With you and our blessing.
inviting Kate forward to get us started with our offering, being the end of the month of a particular brand new group that we added to our rotation.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to say a few words. I think we have a slide. Awesome. Good morning, everybody. I'm Kate Renner. My partner Bart and I have been members of the UTC congregation here since 2013. And it was about that time that I came to know Vecinos. So Vecinos is an organization here in Western North Carolina that does a lot of great work for farm worker health, really reducing barriers to health care for farm workers. I was finishing a dietetic internship at the time with Western Carolina University and achieved a lot of my community nutrition hours with Vecinos. So I got to see what they do, the prevalency of diabetes and hypertension in farm worker communities, as well as the undignified living conditions in which the Division of Labor somehow passes off as being habitable, and also just a lot of things that happen in the field that we might not be aware of. Fast forward to 2019, 2 kids later and a few career changes later, I have a dream job working at Gaia Herbs, which is just down the road, as the farm operations manager, and we have a team of about 30 migrant farm workers that come up, and I've really been able to lean into the work that Vecinos does with nutrition education, with COVID vaccines, with things that are actually not even maybe considered part of what they might be doing. So yoga classes, providing hotspots, internet, so that they can actually communicate with their families, as well as working with the students at Western who are in physical therapy that need bodies and hours of practice. They can come and work with our farm team. So with that, we thank you all so much for your contributions so far this month and to come. And really, if anybody wants to learn more about Vecinos, please catch me after this or visit their website. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you to congregation for voting in this new organization as our January recipient this year. We will now receive the morning offering. In the baskets or envelopes that you can put in cash for Vecinos. We may also be able to pull out checks that have it in the memo line and pass on the funds. So we gratefully receive the morning offering. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Gypsy. What's given in love, we receive with great joy, and we say, thank you. I invite you to center yourselves in whatever ways your body, your tradition, your mind, your spirit helps you for this time of prayer and meditation. Spirit of love and life, we who are gathered here, those of us who have broken our vows 1,000 times, who have come here to remove ourselves, perhaps, from a sense of despair that might have been taught to us in our religious paths, to gather with one another and know that love is spread when joys are doubled by the sharing and sorrows halved by the sharing. To know that in this community, we do not retreat from the world, but instead gather for strength and guidance to be centered in this world, centered in ourselves so that that centeredness comes to the world. We are reminded this morning that our prayers go out to Linda Austin and John Austin. Indeed, they go out to all of those who are grieving, who are worried about transitions of life. Our hearts go out to those who are in joy for the beauty of what is all around us in the news and stories of new life, of new jobs, of better health prognoses, and of knowing that we are beyond the deepest, darkest days of winter and light is beginning to return. These, the meditations of our minds and the prayers of our hearts, we hold now in the silence. In the names of all those known or unknown, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind, we say, Amen, blessed be.
Beautiful that stirred our hearts in you.
Thank you, Janice, for the beautiful music. Carlene, for your piano behind that. And also, for those of you who notice that when we include videos in the service, it brings in people of various hues, various cultures, various ages, various conditions of life. The reading that I have this morning is not the one that was on the order of service that got sent out this week. As was pointed out to me, what got sent out this week was a typo left over from last week, what you all were going to read last week. So this is our reading for this week from the Masnavi, Book 3, from the Oxford Classics edition by Rumi. The translator by Yawad Mojadedi, a native of Afghanistan, who's currently associate professor and director of graduate studies at the Department of Religion at Rutgers University. And Dr. Mojadedi's translation of the Masnavi, Book 1, was awarded the Lewis Roth Prize by the American Institute of Iranian Studies. In italics in this book, I believe, are references in Arabic, which would be references that people who are used to the Quran would recognize, relating to stories. And so the italicized portion before I read Rumi's words are, the unbelievers repeat the arguments for fatalism, and the prophet's next response to them is this. The prophet said, despair is a disgrace, for there's no limit to God's boundless grace. With such a benefactor, don't lose hope. Cling to his mercy's saddle straps like rope. Many a plight was hard on the first day, but was relieved as hardships passed away. After despair, there's still hope, so be wise. After the darkness, many suns will rise. I see you're now immovable as rocks, and on your hearts and your ears you've put locks. Weary, with heart closed, is that gloomy person distant from God, as if inside a prison. The sought beloveds with us nonetheless. Our souls are grateful for his kind largesse. Our hearts have fields of tulips and fine roses. They block away age and what decomposes. We stay forever fresh and delicate, laughing, refined, sweet, and immaculate. 100 years and 1 hour, long and short, we've naught to do with measures of that sort. Length is for bodies and things physical. Such measures do not figure for the soul. Come whoever you are. Title of this sermon comes from that reference of the hymn that we sang, and we've sung many opening times. The words attributed to Rumi, come, come whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come, and we come into this community, not a community of despair. We come into this community with the hope that we are centered and able to touch those things that do not die, to understand our souls in communion, and thus be fed. Rumi's often described as the best-selling poet in the United States. This is a lot of quotes I'm going to give you now from the New Yorker magazine article from 2017, The Erasure of Islam from the Poetry of Rumi, is how they titled it. the best-selling poet in the United States. He's typically referred to as a mystic, a saint, a Sufi, an enlightened man. Curiously, however, although he was a lifelong scholar of the Quran and Islam, he is less frequently described as Muslim. Rumi was born, again quoting from the magazine article, born in the early 13th century in what is now Afghanistan. He later settled in Konya in the present-day Turkey with his family. His father was a preacher and religious scholar, and he introduced Rumi to Sufism. Rumi continued his theological education in Syria, where he studied the more traditional legal codes of Sunni Islam, and later returned to Konya as a seminary teacher. It was there that he met an elder traveler, Shams Tabriz, who became his mentor. The nature of the intimate friendship between these two is much debated, but Shams, everybody agrees, had a lasting influence on Rumi's religious practice and his poetry. I'll come back to that article later, but I go back again to the phrases that we sang, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come, or as our opening reading this morning quoted, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come. A line that was left out. There are different translations, interpretations of what this saying means. One translation from Nevet Ergen said, come again, please come again, whoever you are, religious, infidel, heretic, or pagan. Even if you promised 100 times and 100 times you broke your promise, this door is not a door of hopelessness and frustration. This door is open for everybody. Come, come as you are. It begins to tease the mind to go into the phrases again and again. What is the invitation? How is it phrased? What are the deeper meanings behind it? And the scholars say that a more accurate translation would be return in repentance. Return. Whatever you are, return. Even if you're an unbeliever or a Magian or an idol worshiper, return. This court of ours is not a court of despair. Even if you've broken your repentance 100 times, return. That was from an original Turkish translation. There are so many ways in which we might hear that. Come, whoever you are, though, reverberates through that. Come, no matter how many times you've made mistakes and tripped up and, yeah, I saved this again for the end of January because by now you have forgotten on New Year's Day what you've, oh yeah, I'm pledging this year, 2023, I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to have time for meditation every morning. I'm going to be nice to the people at work. Whatever it is that you've vowed. Maybe those of you online said, yeah, you know what, this year, this is the time post-pandemic, I'll finally show up in church. I will be part of the group once again. I'll get out of my pajamas before 10. Yeah, we know you've forgotten that. Come, yet again, come, whoever you are, no matter how many times you've broken your vows. Repent, come back, is one of those translations. We are no caravan of despair. Now there's a commentary to go with this. It says this: this is one of the most frequently quoted poems attributed to Rumi, but it is not authenticated as his, and is also not in the earliest manuscripts of the quatrains attributed to him. It's found in the same form in many other quatrains of others, and there's names of all sorts of people who I cannot pronounce. But it is one of the most frequently quoted poems by the Turkish Mevleves, which is we know as the whirling dervishes themselves, who had long assumed it to be a Rumi poem from a Turkish translation of the original Persian. All right. I say, if the whirling dervishes themselves from Sufism say that it is Rumi, then it's okay for our hymn book to attribute it to Rumi. And it's okay for us to say Rumi at least said this, even if Rumi was passing it along from those who knew the wisdom beforehand. It's okay. There are some other great quotes out there from Rumi that help us stretch and understand that we can be parts of places and being centered in ways that would help us. There are inspirational posters all over with Rumi quotes, or those who are attributed to Rumi by people who never actually have read the original language, don't know Persian. It's said when I was training for Unitarian Universalist ministry that there is no translation of the Quran. There is only an interpretation. And so in the official versions that you get in any language that you understand, it will have the Arabic and the interpretation in your language both there. Remember I said a little while earlier that mixed into Rumi's writing are quotes that come out in italic in the English because they are in the original Arabic. Rumi, as a teacher, having been trained as a teacher in Islam, would have included phrases that would have referred people to the Quran, to Muslim teachings. Almost entirely in the versions that we get as Americans, these are stripped. You would never know that he was referring to things that were grounded in a religion that we tend to have some prejudices against, because if we strip out all the underpinning parts of Islam that help inspire the Sufis, then we can just keep to thinking about terrorism or something else. So it's a disservice to all of us to have only the English in front of us, and oftentimes English that's been garbled by interpretation upon interpretation. There's another quote that I love reading a lot, attributed to Rumi: "Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even phrase each other doesn't make any sense." Maybe you've heard a version of that. Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. A more accurate translation is this: beyond Islam and the unbelief, there is a desert plain. Beyond Islam and unbelief, there is a desert plain. For us, there is a passion in the midst of that expanse. The knower of God who reaches there will prostrate in prayer, for there is neither Islam nor unbelief, nor anywhere in that place. That's a bit different. For one thing, we understand Rumi to be speaking to people in an area who are not thinking that they're going out into a field. We Americans might say, oh yeah, out beyond the field, out there. there is a field. To hear there's a desert out there sounds a lot more culturally appropriate. Wrangled from its original meaning, we forget the grounding of place. And yet, that particular sense of this translation says, there is neither Islam nor unbelief nor anywhere in that place. This is, I believe, the ultimate in helping us understand that religion itself, and Rumi does in his writings say this, religion itself is not what we are bound to. The particular teachings that he would be teaching in seminary were not what he felt was what brought us to a more transcendent place, to that which was holy, in which we could greet one another in all our differences. One scholar said that the reason why Rumi had this universalism was in part based in the Islamic idea of the people of the book. That Islam, after both Judaism and Christianity were well established, put into their writings that the followers of the people of the book, all of them, had some portion of the respected truth. Islam, handed down from Muhammad the prophet, peace be on his name, they would say immediately after saying his name, brought a newer, more complete version. But the people of the book were to be allowed, accepted, and our neighbors in their beliefs. Come, come again, whoever you are. And a universalist stance that may have sprung from the various teachings of a religion that we may not have understood to be so wealthy with references that might allow an open-mindedness to those who are different. Come, come, whoever you are, to this. Return in repentance from what you've done wrong. Return even though you vowed to follow through on repentance and messed it up. Return again. Please come again, whoever you are. The court of ours is not of despair, it said. I read in my reading that particular passage from the Masnavi, the big, long, multi-volume set that some feel hadn't been completed by the time of Rumi's death, that it said, despair is a disgrace, for there's no limit to God's boundless grace. Now, that could have been written in those exact words to a 1790s Universalist hymn book. I did research on hymns when I was in theological school, a study of early hymn books of Universalism, reams and reams of poetry, trying to tell people a message that was so different from the other churches of the time. The other churches which would say, you are all going to suffer for an eternity. None of you is good enough. Instead, the Universalists said, no, don't despair. They even said that the bell, the sound of the bell for the Universalists was, no hell, no hell, no hell, when it rang on Sunday morning. Do you know what that message did to an emerging nation that was broken off from England and the Church of England, broken off from those who were spewed out, turned out, exiled from other places. A place, America, where we were trying to choose what was best for us, and from this side of the street to the other, there was a difference in the way the preaching was going. And little by little, in the Universalist sense, the Presbyterians stopped talking about the fact that only 10% of their congregations were going to go to heaven. And the others would stop spending 2 hours every Sunday before lunch and then come back again saying to everyone, you will suffer in hell. Because they found in a free market that the Universalists, no hell, and maybe shorter sermons, was attracting more people. But the Universalist idea is not just rooted in our history. You can go back to the 1200s and see it in this Persian poetry. The cultural gems of Iran, Turkey, and Syria, from someone who was born in Afghanistan. An image that comes to my mind of Afghanistan is not one of universalism. It's not one that brings to me the sense of a teaching that would spring up so richly, what is it said, like roses and tulips in some of his writings, that help us defy death, the beauty of messages of religion that say we must directly access the divine, because in that embrace we are brought to a place not of despair, but one of hope. Despair is a disgrace, for there's no limit to God's boundless grace. With such a benefactor, don't lose hope. Cling to his mercies, saddle straps like rope. It's amazing. Amazing that someone born in the early 13th century is so popular, and that so many people would interpret what he says and put his name to it because he's so popular, but still get some things wrong. I would like to know how many of you have grasped Rumi's writings. How many of you have understood Rumi to have been grounded as a teacher in Islam? How many of you, when you sing, come, come, whoever you are, and know it to be the message of this place, both owned from our universalist background and borrowed from the Sufis or the mystics of this world, to know, to come here is the place of community, where we might encourage one another to spiritual growth, where we might recognize people's individual paths, where we might have turned away from particular teachings and scriptures, just as people did in the 1790s and later, left their religions to make universalism one of the largest religions in America. Now nuns are, N-O-N-E-S, people who don't even show up at any church at all. But the universalists, to draw away from those ideas. Rumi, or at least somebody who attributes this to Rumi, said, when school and mosque and minaret get torn down, then dervishes can begin their community. Not until faithfulness turns to betrayal and betrayal into trust can any human being become part of the truth. Wow. Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come yet again, come. Though you've betrayed, come again, come. Find a place of trust. Find a place in your centeredness. The final quote of my sermon is from Rumi's book, number 1, and so it is from the most recent translation that I quoted earlier from that man born in Afghanistan, translating that 13th century man from Afghanistan, grounded in the actual text. To be like mystics, stay with them a while. For even if you should be made from stone, though mystics as a jewel, you'll soon be known. Through mystics, as a jewel, you'll soon be known. Plant love of saints now firmly in your heart. Submit your soul to those who will never part. While there's still hope, don't wallow in despair. Why choose the dark when there's a sun up there? Your heart will lead you to the mystic way. Your body drags you as its cell of clay. So give your heart food from those in accord. Seek fortune from the ones who know their Lord. Now that's a low case letter, Lord. And for those of you who would like access to the divine without that phrase, well, you know, everyone else has translated Rumi the way they want to hear it. The wisdom, though, is still there. We each, I believe, have access to the divine, and we have it when we gather together in a community that accepts us as people who are not perfect, who know that we have strayed from the right ways of doing things, but we can gather together. Thank you. Come, come, whoever you are. Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come. I invite you to rise and sing to that mystic spirit with voice still and small. Hymn number 391. The words will be on the screen.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing. Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
As you carry that still small voice out into the world, carry with you the memory of this flame, the idea carried through history that we can gather together, whoever we are, no matter where we are on journeys and how many times we have stumbled on that journey. For we come to this place to be recharged and centered, to remember again, and go out into the world to make a difference, and then come back again in love Come, come, whoever you are again. See you next week.